Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and we have special guest with us, Jason Flanzer. How you doing, Jason?
Doing good.
Good. I met you at the regional provisionals in California this past week. We sat down. This was both of our first regionals. We both were from Phoenix. We both went to colleges in the Midwest. I'm like, what is this guy me? Like, just so many similarities. And then day two, we just look over and like, oh, hey, we're both top 8, and then we're both top 4, and just super well on our first tournament. So I really wanted to kind of sit down and kind of talk about you, your deck, your performance, and kind of everything else about it.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, we had the fortune, to play in the Swiss,
Yes.
and you don't really look back, right? And when I looked at the top 8, I was like, I've played 4 of these people at the top 8, and Hayden snuck in at 8th.
Yeah, 8th place. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was like, oh, I know I'm going to be bumped down to 9th. I know it. And no, it was a really fun experience, really cool. And I think both of us were, just using characters that people don't use as often, which I think is cool as well. So, and especially because I think both of us have experience out in like a lot of different card games. So bringing our experiences and our knowledges to this one can get some different vibes and stuff, which I think is really cool.
Absolutely. I mean, I definitely look at it through the lenses of the games I've played in the past. And I played a lot of, obviously, Magic my whole life, but I played a lot of the Fantasy Flight card games like Netrunner or Game of Thrones card game.
Okay.
And there's just a lot of interesting tools. Like you said, it has that that experience. I mean, I've also played Dragon Ball, which obviously you're rather adept at, and it's this game and that game and Netrunner both kind of have this like, how can I navigate this one turn to like make the impact? And so it's a cool way of thinking about it. And I think that these experiences do pan out and do work.
Yeah. For when I made my deck, the big thing I like in Dragon Ball is hand destruction, right? Because if your opponent doesn't have anything they can do, you can't misplay. You know what I mean? Like if you give them 0 options, they can't play around it. And so that's usually my kind of mantra. That's like the end game state that I like to get into. But with Sero, what is kind of your state, or why did you choose this character to represent you and your deck for this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, tons of reasons, and honestly, one of the things you said, Sero might be one of the best in the game about. He has 3 different abilities, but one of them is a once per game ability. When either you or your opponent fully block an attack, you can say, "I'll use the once per game." You get to look into their hand, understand all the information they have in front of them, and then take one of those cards and discard it.
Yeah.
So we're destroying their hand, and we're understanding exactly where we are in the game, and can make moves based on that information.
Yeah, and I think that's like being able to know, since it is a once per game, you have to know exactly when the right moment for that is, because if you do it the wrong time, then you just wasted information and everything else. And I know when you played, I really didn't want you to activate it. And I don't know if I didn't have a poker face or not, but you're like, yeah, let's get that what was it? The howitzer out of your hand. I'm like, no, I needed that.
Yeah, no, you definitely had a moment where you could have really stuck it to me, and I was able to get in there. I mean, it's really crazy the different times that you can use it, because you can use it defensively, as you just mentioned, where you were kind of getting somewhere that I didn't want you to get. And so I was like, okay, we're going to slow it down. And then conversely, when we flip it to offense, I could make a little attack, maybe send one of my little 4/4s out. And then if they block it, be like, oh, I actually have a handful of gas.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at their hand and then just shred them from there.
Yeah, especially because you are somewhere like you can change the zone of your attacks. If you can say, oh, they have only lows, easy, send it high, and then hope they don't have a way to cycle into it. So, and yeah, in general, and this is just my experience in the game too, there's so many thoughts of where I want to use this offensively or defensively. It's up to me to decide when that timing is. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, Sero having 3 different abilities and them all being very relevant is super good. And the way that you play him makes the other abilities all work. They all synergize together. The other crazy ability he has is if you partially block an attack, you get to draw 2 cards.
Yeah.
So you're sticking it in zones where they don't want. If they want to take no damage, then they're gonna have to partial. And then from there you get more cards, more information, maybe more safety on the back end. And so he does a lot of things. And I think right now we saw decks that they could take any attack, like these life decks. They could take any attack and they could make it go away, right? You're like, I'm going to block it no matter what. And if you're putting everything in the same zone, it's really not a matter of, can you reduce the speed and block? It's well, are you going to even have a block to block this?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, yeah, I think in your list, and we'll go over more specifically, yeah, a lot of high and low attacks, mostly I think high. Yeah. But it doesn't really matter again, because you can change the zone whenever you want. So I think that's really important. And yeah, I don't know. Yeah. There's just so many times, like even for my deck too, when we played, like, yeah, I can reduce the speed to 0 and I can always partial block it, but that means I'm always giving you a draw 2 and yeah, giving you just more and more gas.
Just like you would know in Moneta, you know, playing throws or playing things that get through anyways.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're probably not going to partial block it anyways, but the speed is low, so it feels good to do. And then now it's just like it just is toppling over, and I've really enjoyed him. You know, I've turn 2'd people, but I've also played long games. I think he's a pretty flexible choice and probably a top 3 order character at the moment. In my opinion.
So what is the main reason you chose order? If you were to choose a couple cards to immediately talk about, what are the strong order cards that made you choose that symbol?
I love order's ability to draw cards on the go. For me, that's huge. We're looking at Recipro Extend, which is a kick attack that always draws a card. It literally just says draw a card. So I'm just powering through my deck with that. And then if you slide down, you go to high engine kick. That allows you to kind of loot through your deck. So I'm cycling cards. I'm looking at cards. I'm getting the exact ones I want. I'm sculpting. And then finally, calling for backup is really just a great card. If you use it as your first enhance, you get to permanently draw a card. Otherwise, you can once again sculpt. But it also doesn't require you to tap it. Yeah, you only get to use it once because you flip it. But it doesn't clog up my pool of committed attacks or clog up my stage with committed attacks or committed foundations. And from there, you know, it is efficient. You know, there are really, really powerful things like passing the torch, which is a really great card that will help you draw 1 card. But you have to commit it. I don't even play that because I'm not looking to turn my
you caught me trying to find it. Like, nope, it's not there.
No, it's not there. And it's one of the best cards. I mean, some people even say it could be banned. But I'm just not interested in committing my foundations to just draw when I have so much innate draw power in my deck.
Yeah, and again, at least for me, when I do my own deck building for this game, it's probably very remedial, but it's like I don't ever want to, you know, be in the situation where I have to tap a card to use it sometimes, because it's really important to me. And this is, you know, for a 1, I think that's really strong as well, because 1 foundations are very easy to check, and being able to flex, you know, and just flipping it, I think is more useful than committing it. So I do like that from it.
I would say too, you know, you said why order. When I first started looking at cards, I don't know what it was, but I looked at the card tape swing, the attack tape swing, and I learned about what it does. And I'm just like, this card is dumb. And it just looks really cool. It's that 1 high block, and high blocks are very powerful right now. A lot of low attacks have kind of left the meta. And this guy is incredible. And I was like, I got to play this. And it's okay in a lot of decks. And in Sero, it's absolutely crack. It's just incredible.
Yeah, I was learning new cards all weekend, but specifically this one, when you played it, I'm like, oh yeah, is that what it does? Okay.
There's literally nothing good you can do. And when we go into it a little further, I'll talk about some of the key meta reasons why it's even more insane than just what you read.
Yeah, exactly. So it is obviously, if it's a 2 on the bottom right, you know, it means it has to be pretty good. But yeah, when this comes out, it's just like, oh, I'm going to guarantee damage, which means I guarantee momentum. And obviously there are some partial ways to do this, but like to get around it. But yeah, most of the way it's very, very tricky to, you know, play around it.
For sure.
So but yeah, let's just go down I don't know if there's really a good way to go through these. So requesting assistance, just being able to, or do you want to maybe just go through?
I'll just leave it. So requesting assistance, it's a staple. Pretty much all 3 of those symbols are going to play it. It lets you ready a foundation if you have a momentum by flipping it. It's your 0 diff. It's even a 2, or your 0 control. It's a 2 block, so it's not even that awful. And it's just a fantastic card. You'll see a lot of cards that I have. Well, I don't want to commit them, like I was mentioning earlier, defensively specifically. It allows me to really shut down their offense, and then offensively allows me to just make sure that I am checking appropriately.
Yeah, for sure. And again, like when you can just almost always guarantee that your opponent would just have to half block something, it's very easy to get momentum in a deck like this.
Yep, absolutely. And then you've got tape. You're going to notice the greatest weakness of this deck from a defensive standpoint is that there's not a lot of high blocks and there's not a lot of low blocks. The ones that I do have are incredible, but there's just not. And tape allows you to flip it, change it to mid. So any attack I can make mid, and I have 1,000,001 mid blocks in this deck. So I'm super efficient there. Another thing that you can do is you can change your own attack to mid, and we'll talk about why that's relevant later with Tape Swing. But it allows you to just move zones around. I mean, if Sero's on the card, there's probably good reason that it's fantastic. But I think tape is honestly a staple. I love the fact that you can just take anything, make it mid. That means any block in your hand can at least partial it, is what it says, much less probably block it completely.
Yeah. All right. Think fast.
This is a card where if I open with first foundation think fast and I'm on the play, the game is 50% over. It is that insane of a card. It says that whenever you change, if a zone has been changed, you can use it to give your attack +1/+1 because Sero can change the zone on every attack.
Yeah.
It means that every attack of this is +1/+1.
Yeah.
And you can commit a foundation to change the zone of your attack again, whether if they mess it up or once again, comboing with Tape Swing to make it more powerful. This attack is just stupid, or this foundation. It is unique, but if you look up in the upper right-hand corner, it's a 1 mid block, as I was talking about before.
Yeah.
But even seeing them, I love to see it. They're great blocks. You're going to have one on your stage. And if you, like I said, if you see this turn 1, it is a very good feeling on the play. It almost guarantees you the game, I feel like.
Yeah, just giving everything essentially +1/+1 for the entire match seems pretty strong.
It is, and with Sero, people just don't want to block. They're like, oh, I want blocks. I want to give you cards. I don't want you to take a card out of my hand. But +1, the difference between 4 and 5 in this game is everything.
It really is. Yeah.
Bonds of Friendship. This is your 6 check in order. Once again, the weakness of order is that we don't really have great stage manipulation outside of requesting assistance. So this card is incredibly important to make sure you're checking those 6s. And once again, 1 high block. Very important. I'm running 4. And when we talk about Giant Bite Detention, it's going to be one of the key cards that I'm putting back in my deck.
Cool. Self-sacrifice. Pretty self-explanatory too, but
yeah, this card's insane. You need, when you're building your deck, if you're new to this game, like having a card that can destroy your own foundations is super big. You're going to keep drawing. If you don't want to go into deadlock, you want to make sure you're blowing up your face downs or you're manipulating your board in some way so you can play new foundations. This guy does that. He's defensive. He's offensive. He's a 1 low block. I bumped it to 4 copies the night before just because I was like, you know what? I want those blocks, and I want to make sure I have the ability to manipulate my stage.
Yeah, this seems like it's never, ever dead, so.
That's so good. Calling for backup, we already talked about. Drawing cards, don't need to say much more.
Yeah.
Heroic Lineage is the premier order card, I would say, Order Foundation. You're going to see it in Void, and you're going to see it in Fire. It's one of the best, but it's really iconic order. What it does is when your opponent is adding damage to their attacks, you can respond and give them -3 speed.
Yep.
And when you're adding speed to your attacks, you can add damage. I mean, this is everything. It's the full gambit. It's the second, card to think fast. That's going to power you through the game. Defensive, offensive, it does it all. And it's also just a really cool looking card with all the Ida family on it. Even
Yeah.
But in the foiling, it looks really nice.
Yeah,
it looks a little silly, but it looks really nice in foil.
I see most people bumping this up to foil. At least when I saw it play, a lot of people recognize just how good this is in so many decks. So, and on a response as well, it just means that you don't even have to waste an enhance on it either, which is kind of cool.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially because some people have ways to playing against a lot of Texas Smash. They're going to be bumping the damage of the next attack. So before they can maybe manipulate stuff, they're going to attack on that 4 damage before they get to enhance. You're going to get to give it the speed drop before they even can do any enhancing. So.
Yep.
Desperate times, we're talking about a 0 again. It's, you got to play a bunch of them to make sure that you're efficient, to make sure you squeeze things out, especially with the two checks like we saw with Tape Swing.
Yeah.
But this is all in line. This is all good. I mean, we're talking about flipping, we're flipping it and we're tapping down their board to make our attacks better, to frustrate them. It's iconic. In this deck, it's not as good as it is in other decks, but as a premier 0, you're going to play it.
Yeah, I wish I could put this in evil minute or in death minetta. Evil and wave definitely run it, but it's put order instead of death by mistake, I'm sure. But
no, it's his first. This is the first minetta symbols, man.
Yeah. All right, ice gliding.
Ice Gliding, this card does it all. If you consider that you normally commit one foundation when you're blocking to bump, to represent one of their speed, the fact that you can tap this to give it -2 speed, and then if you do successfully block, -1 for the next, this card does it all. It even adds speed, which a lot of people don't even use it for.
Yeah.
So offensively, you can use it. Defensively, you can use it. And it can make it so that you can put some really crazy attack out there. I can make it reasonable to block, pull the card from their hand with Sero, and even if they're going to play something else, I still get another -1 speed on the back end. It represents 3 taps of a single card.
Yeah.
3 commitments. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, I was just going to, the same thing. Yeah, -2 and -1, -3 speed across 2 attacks, or even just saying, you know what, your opponent's not going to, it's just going to say it's not worth it to play another attack, which is good enough as it is.
Absolutely.
All right.
Fruit, man, yep. Fruit. This card is nutty. It's a 2 low on the block, which I love. It does 2 different things really. On your rival's turn, if they're stuffing your card pool, maybe
who knows? Yeah. Guilty.
Who knows? You can remove it from your stage, and you can discard 2 of the cards from your card pool. So that's going to make it easy to block. Also, sometimes people might put things there and it will hurt you. This is going to make it so that's not the case.
Yeah.
But the deadlock form is the real kicker. On your turn, you form it, you flip it, and your rival builds 1 card from their hand face down.
Yeah.
So maybe they have 3 cards. They feel like they're successful on defense, but it's my turn now. I say first form. I'm going to flip it, take one of those cards from your hand, and put it on the ground. Yep. And I'm going to attack. If you block it, I'm going to take the other card. So it is brutal. If you have 2 of these on your board and they're in deadlock, they just discard 2 cards effectively.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. And so then, if you have 4 attacks and they got 2 cards in their hand, 2 of them are probably going to do some damage.
Yeah, this is a fantastic card, and I'm a big fan of it.
All right.
Driving Resentment. It was a late ad. We're at the point where the last 2 attacks, honestly, are flex slots. It's funny that they kind of naturally came together. But I was worried about the All Might 3 matchup. And he's going to be playing that back alley Haymaker. You're going to see Haymaker in so many decks.
It's so good. I hate that card.
I hate that card too. So additional 2 to the stun is a huge deal. And after a card leaves a discard pile due to the rival's non-character effect, a la Back Alley Haymaker, you can make them build the top card of their deck face down. So Back Alley Haymaker doesn't want to see this card in any which way. Anyone who's trying to cheat and use non-character abilities to pull cards out of their discard, you're going to punish, make it harder for them to check things, and then push the turn to you.
Yeah.
And so it's a 2 high block as well. So we're looking clean, helping me shore up those high blocks, which I think are really important right now.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty crucial ad. I think it does a lot in those matchups, like you said. So cool. And that's the foundation. So 37 of those. You think that was the right number, or how were your checks, I guess, on foundations for the weekend?
They're good. Yeah. 37-22 is my attack foundation split with 1 additional action. So I'm looking at exactly 60. It's a little bit thicker than the original concept, which was a little more narrow, but I think some of these games do go long, and by adding things specifically that had really powerful deadlock abilities, I was able to navigate some of these games in a very, very powerful way. And I think the 37 was the right number.
Cool. Well, let's go into that attack pile then with the Giant Bite Detention.
This is the card that everyone will talk about. You'll hear everyone saying, tape swing this, tape swing that. But when you play against the deck and I throw down the Giant Bite Detention, it's like people are just aghast. They don't know what to do with themselves. So Giant Bite Detention is a very, very tough card to set up. It requires you to have an attack, and then after that, a high attack.
Yep.
This is the reason why there's so many high attacks in my deck. It's because of Giant Bite Detention. You already mentioned I can change the zones wherever I want, so why I have so many highs? I need to have them to make this work. So what it does, it comes out with a stun 1, but the combo enhances +3 speed, +3 damage.
Yeah.
So we're looking at a 6 high for 7. If you got to think fast on board, we're looking at a 7 high for 8. It just chomps. And then the second ability shuffles up to 3 cards from either player's discard pile into their deck. The flexibility of this is insane. I already mentioned I love to shuffle if I've got a bunch of Bonds of Friendships in my deck and I'm going for the kill. Shuffle 3 more 6 checks in my deck to make sure that this big string, maybe I'll hit 1 and that could be gold.
Yeah.
Furthermore, you can shuffle your opponent's cards, something I did in my top 8 match. My opponent was unfortunately getting a lot of attacks into his discard pile. It was disproportionate. to see.
Yeah.
And I played 2 giant bite detentions, and I shuffled 6 more foundations into his deck. So the likelihood that he was going to go rip a whole bunch of them, I was really diluting that and making sure that it was going to be very hard for him to do. And if you really just need to make sure you're going to draw a grip full of attacks, you feel like there's nothing they can do to kill you, I just have to kill you on the next turn. You can even put your own attacks in there. So
yeah, and
it's a cool card.
If they have a bunch of 2 checks or something, you want them to be able to hit or stuff like that. But yeah, even just I probably wouldn't have had the insight myself to be like, you know what, I see they don't have a lot of attacks, and what they're probably maybe like a 6-hander or something. I don't know who you played against. Who was the top 8 match?
It was all my 3, and he draws a lot of cards, but I knew that I was having a position where it's like you need 4 attacks out of the 8 cards. 8 to 9 cards you're going to end up seeing on your turn.
Gotcha.
With so many of them already in the bin, I knew he was probably on between 20 and 25 attacks, and I think I counted it, and he was at like 16.
Oh wow,
or something like that. And he was halfway through his deck, so I was like, and I had 2 giant bites. So 1 giant bite detention, I would probably lean to fixing my deck a little bit in one way or the other. But with 2 of them, I knew I was going to shuffle all 6 of them into his deck. And this thing is a 4. It's a 4. It's a 4 control, so it's easy to. You can play this on turn. It's going to be a 6 on your 3rd attack. This isn't that difficult to do. And once again, I already mentioned it before, but you look over, it's a 1 mid block, which I just have a pile of in this deck.
Yeah, and obviously it can combo with itself because it is a high attack in itself. So being able to do 2, or I tell you could get 3 in a row, but you could theoretically do that as well.
Yeah, it's tough to get 3, but I've very often gotten 2. It's a cool attack.
Yes. All right. Next up is Reciprocal Burst. We're running 1 of.
Yeah, it's just the 1 of. I generate a lot of momentum, as you said, and tape swing is really the best way for me to take advantage of that. But if you get to the late game and you end up finding this random Reciprocal Burst and you've got 4 momentum, I mean, you're going to just KO someone.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with Reciprocal Burst, every time they tap or commit a foundation, it gets +1 speed. And it automatically stuns one, so it's going to get a net 1 speed from that. So you're looking at 4 low for 5. Then you can discard 1 momentum, and it's going to give your attack at +X damage, where X is the difference between the speed of the attack and 3. The crazy part is that's EX3. So those other 3 momentum, if I have 4, I'm going to pitch 3 of them, give it +9 speed, putting it up with the stun 1 to 13. And then when I use that ability, it's going to be +10 damage. So we're looking at a speed 13 for 15 swing.
So just end the game, obviously, if you're able to get that at that last swing. So yeah, this seems very, very strong. And again, as you said, you build so much momentum in this deck because it's very easy for your opponent to only be able to do half blocks against you.
Yeah, and I just was when it came down to it, I looked at all the 5-cost attacks I was playing, and I just didn't want to see Reciprocal Burst that often. I did want it as that finisher, but even getting it to 2, I just felt like Tape Swing, Grasping Tape Toss, and one for All were just better fits for my deck. I love to see this card. I wouldn't shame anyone for running 2 or maybe even 3, but I just felt like I wanted it at the right opportune time, and hopefully it comes on turn 3 or 4 where I can really abuse it. So I kept it at 1.
Yeah, I mean, anything with stun, I like it. Stun is such a strong keyword, so
it is.
Let's see. We talked about extend, pretty much just easy to play, card draw, and pretty much high engine kick at the same thing. So let's just go over to the flying thruster kick instead.
This is really a concession to the giant bite detention. It's not the best card in the world. That being said, if you have a Think Fast on board, this card does get nutty. You can play it as your first attack. It's a 4. You're going to easily check it.
Yeah.
Then you Think Fast it after you change its zone, so it becomes a 5/5, and then it naturally adds another 2 damage on top. So just a cheap little 4 for speed 5/7 damage if you have the Think Fast out. You can always use one of your momentum to EX it, or a Ice Gliding to pump it up, and then finally Reciprocal Extend will pump your next attack 2/2. So it's a very nice fit between the 4 high engine kicks and the 3 flying thruster kicks. I have 7 options to back up my Reciprocal Extend, then to lead into the giant bite detention, because they went attack, high attack, giant bite. So that's kind of the reason it's here. And look at what we see in the upper right hand corner again, the 1 mid block, 4 more on the high engine kick as well that we kind of skipped over. So it's those attacks just sink in. These are just my bread and butter. Getting in there, they don't want to block them because they don't want to let me draw cards, and I'm putting it where they don't want it.
Yeah, for sure. And like a lot of these, I'd say are kind of like specific on combos. But again, you made sure with your build that there's a lot of cycle, a lot of card draw. Sero naturally has it with its response to get the draw too. So I think it's likelier than most decks to find that extra cycle, to find these combos and consistently get that, which I think is really nice.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's not the best card in the world, but I do believe it fits perfectly.
Yeah. All right, another one of go for it.
Yeah, talking about another concession. I originally played this just because it was a high that had a 1 low block. Once again, I want to be able to squeeze out as much defense as I can.
Yeah.
That being said, it has like a blood curdle light built into it, where if you don't block it, which they don't want to block Sero's attacks, you get to commit their character, which is super powerful.
Yeah.
And then, furthermore, it has the Hail Mary, I like to call it, where you can discard your hand and draw 3 cards. That's a crazy good ability, and I even found ways to use it in ways that it wasn't as obvious. For example, against All Might 3, you have the ability, he punishes you for having a ton of cards in your hand.
Sure, yeah.
So when I was playing against Jacob, he actually did a great job of half blocking me a lot, and I wanted to use my Sero ability, so I kept drawing and drawing and drawing. Well, if I finish my string with an all-for-one full cowling, I can just pitch that whole hand and draw up 3 and pass the turn. And understand that with the tapes that I have on board to make things mid, I'm very likely going to have a very safe opportunity to play defense on the next turn. So this is a great attack. It does 6 damage. Once again, if it's think fastable, 5 for 7 is just dumb. And there are some decks that do still swing with the lows. It's really the reason I have an even another one. I can change out one of my high blocks for a low block into certain matchups that need it.
Yeah, and yeah, I remember you playing this against me specifically. I'm like, oh, I gotta have my Moneta, not committed. I need to get that. Oh, I always need to be able to, pitch a momentum to set something to 0. So like, I'm like, oh, I guess I'm half blocking, giving you 2. I'll take the the choice there. But yeah, it's very mean.
It just feels bad, right? You're still taking damage. I'm still drawing cards, and you're out of cards. So it's tough.
And this is definitely a picture of us at the end of our match, like just.
For sure. I think this art is hilarious.
Yeah.
I do have the sweet promo ones, but every time I see this one, it's so funny because Sero's so close to the picture, and my dad looks so tiny.
Yeah, far away.
This card is nutty. I actually was off of it, and my buddy Caleb, Caleb Larson, he kind of got me into this. Or back into this, I should say, because I have played this card so many different times in different decks. But we're looking at that throw. It does a flat 5 damage, stun 1. If the attack is not blocked, you get to specifically commit 1 foundation.
Yeah.
We are punishing our opponent for not wanting to block these attacks.
Yeah.
And the Deadlock Enhance, I won a game off the back of it. It's actually the stream game with Sam Tate.
Okay.
He would have easily been able to handle my attacks had he had the right foundations. He unfortunately played his 11th foundation. First action, slam, grasping, tape toss, tucked the 2 amazing defensive foundations on the bottom of his deck, and then I won the game.
Yeah, and probably the readied ones too as well. So like,
it was he had like nothing tapped. It was the beginning of my turn, and I just slammed it down, and he had these really fantastic things that would be able to totally stop me in my tracks.
Yeah,
get rid of them.
Yeah, I would love to run this card in Death Mineta. If it was Death instead of Void, I would be so thrilled. Like Mineta's on the card. I know I can run them in Wave, or not Wave, Water. I know a lot of people probably put in the Water versions of it because it's again a throw, a stun, and does this management with your opponent's foundations and stuff. But yeah, this is a really disgusting card. I like to see it.
Absolutely.
All right, swing back to this guy. Not a pun intended, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the card that everyone couldn't stop talking about. The judges would always love watching me play my tape swings. I had like 3 judges regularly like piled behind me because I kind of an exciting deck, right? It's got like fun moves. It's not boring. I'm not just building.
Yeah.
And tape swing is the crown jewel. It's such a good card on its own. But it's not even, it's like maybe a B+, in the meta. It definitely has a good spot. But when you play it with Sero, it's S+, man. This card is stupid. So I'm going to walk through some of the amazing things it does. Very simply, it's a 4 for 6 mid. Obviously, I can change that zone. And anytime this attack has its zone changed, it gets +2 damage.
Yeah.
So at base, we're looking at a 4 for 8 with Sero. If I have a Think Fast, we're not only looking for a 5 for 9, Think Fast allows me to tap any foundation to once per enhanced step change the zone of an attack.
Yep.
So now we're looking at a 5 for 11. And then for every single momentum you discard, you can change the zone of this attack, and you can do it any number of times during the attack. So as I gain information, I can just kind of play with people. If someone has a reset that might reset me to like 0 damage, I can just say, okay, I'm going to send this for 13.
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, fine, I'll reset it. You're like, cool, I'm going to change the zone. I'm going to change the zone. It's back to 10. So it's such a beating. And the real kicker on it, there's no throw on this card.
Yeah.
But you might think that there is, because you can never completely block this. And that does 2 things. One, you're always going to be taking half if you block it.
Yeah.
But 2, there are certain cards, generally mids, and mid is generally where you want to leave this card, that are so powerful. We're talking about Plus Ultra, which will set its speed to 0. We're talking about Faith Shield that'll completely block all the damage from this attack. We're talking about all these different options. Wall Cling is really the only card that can really handle what this card does. And you can just leave it there. I had an opponent earlier that day, right before you actually.
Okay.
My final attack was a tape swing. I play the tape swing. I don't even check it. He just tosses 2 Faith Shields on the table and says, "Good game."
Yeah.
Because he knew that I was going to keep it mid. He knew I was going to not let him block it. And once again, to reiterate, you cannot play a block of the zone that tape swing is.
Yeah. I immediately I didn't know I was dead, but I'm like, oh, easy. I'll use Cheerful Uppercut. It's either that or naval laser, and just be like, oh, breaker 2. I'll make sure that I'll take the hurt from this one and stop the next one. And you're like, no, it's mid, so you actually don't have any way to block this right now. I'm like, oh, cool, great. But yeah, it's super good.
It's so much damage. Like in the open, if you have like 2 or 3 momentum plus Sero's ability, even without Think Fast, I mean, we're looking at, with 2 momentum, you're looking at a 12 damage attack.
Yeah.
And it's also a 1 high block. So, I mean, I like to keep them in my hand. I'll either play them first or I'll keep them for later, hoping that in a pinch, I'll use that as a great block if I really need it. But obviously, I'll try to hold it so that I draw into other attacks and I can make a big push.
Yeah, and I could see again, because since it's the 2, you want to try maybe save it in hand, and then after you recycle your deck, you're like, okay, cool, I can know that there's like maybe just 1 more in there or something, and then keep your checks consistent. But yeah, in general, yeah, it's a throw, and if you can consistently get it to like 12 plus damage, you know that if you get your opponent down to like 6 health, you can just win the game on the spot.
Exactly. And you see that there's a 4th one on my sideboard. There probably should just be 4 in the main, but I'm okay with the 3 just to make sure my game 1 checks are good, and then I can get risky and sculpt my sideboard.
Yeah, and again, you're in a deck that just has a lot of inherent cycles, so you can kind of afford to have that kind of stuff go for you. So, well, then we got 1 more card in the main. At least it's the Blood Curdle.
This is the card that any defensive character hates to see. You just play it as your first form and commit a foundation, and then you get to commit that character. So anyone who cannot uncommit themselves, they're just out of gas.
Yeah.
We're talking about like Eraserhead. We're talking about maybe if you think the Momo defense is important. We're talking about Moneta.
Yeah.
Is gonna make things a problem. We're talking about Kirishima 2. So we have a lot of really great options where this card comes in and really does work. It is not my favorite card. When I first started playing it, I loved it. I did cut it out of a lot of matchups, even some that maybe you would normally see it.
Yeah.
That being said, when you need it, you need it. Like Eraserhead is a miserable matchup. You almost cannot win it unless you draw a bunch of tape swings, you almost cannot win it. And Blood Curdle makes it so that you play that and then it's game on. You're just you're not only playing a game, you're playing a game against a 7-hander with like no health.
Yeah.
So it's a fantastic card, and you're going to see here when we back up on the side 2 more copies. I have the Miser's copy here just in case. I can cycle it, I can block with it, what have you. But 2 more on the side for when it really is good. It'll be good.
Yeah, and yeah, I as much as I don't like 2 checks yet, 4 checks specifically, those ones are like the really weird ones, and especially since this is an action on a 4 too, so there's always a good chance that you will have to tap a foundation already just to get the check for it. Having to tap 2 for this can be a little bit much, but I think you're right. There's a lot of like against me. Yeah, I think you did it. I'm like,
yep.
Well, I hope I have defense options outside of my. I tend to just lean very heavy on Mineta, just making it as an emergency backup plan to prevent damage.
I mean, Mineta is so good. Like he's so absolutely powerful. His ability not only stops my defense, but also helps you draw cards, or my offense, but helps you draw cards. It's the way you stay afloat.
Yeah.
So that one of copy in my deck, like I would say once every 5 matches, the one of will just win me a game. So I think in that case, if I'm expecting to go, the distance and play 7 or 8 rounds and then get into a top 8, that one of, I think it's worth it to have something that powerful as a one of.
Yeah, for sure. So going to the side, so immediately, as you said, some more blood curdles. We saw some more tape swings and the all for one full cowling strike. So let's just talk about the last 2. So first, Searing Glacial Storm.
This is it. This is the one. This is the card that when you play it, other than tape swing, it's the groan check. This card is crazy. It has a first enhance, and you can only do it if you're playing order. If your character has order on it. And you can do it if you're not playing order. You can do it if your character has order on it.
Oh, okay.
Both. Yeah. So if you move it to a fire deck and your character doesn't have the order symbol, you cannot use the first enhance.
Gotcha. Okay.
But if you don't have to be like, I could be playing, in this picture, for example, it has Todoroki, right? So I could be playing Todoroki as water and still use it because you just have to have the symbol match your characters.
Gotcha. That is unironically the first time I've heard this. So thank you very much, actually, for. It's
super rare. They almost, I don't even know if they printed any in the first set. And the ones that they did print in the second set, there's a couple, but like 2 or 3 of them are Todoroki, which is very weird.
No, there's like one that I know that because I'm working on an evil deck that has the same thing. It's one with Stain. I don't exactly. I think it's like knife something, but. I thought, for sure. So just having that on your character. Okay, cool. Good to know.
So it says first enhance. Both players remove foundations in their stage until they have 5. Then you end the enhance step. So you're just like, play it. We're both going to 5, and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And it removes them. So they're gone. If you've committed to playing some really good ones that you can tech, maybe even ones you can normally get back out of your discard, it's not happening. They're out of the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then additionally, and you saw this in the game with Sam Tate in game 2 on the stream, if you guys want to check it out, I actually just played 2 Searing Glacial Storms as 2 high for 6s with stun too, which it also does.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the low speed is irrelevant because in my deck, it's like you're going to block them or you're not. So it's like if you're choosing not to block because you don't want the pressure of the hand or you don't want a partial because you don't want me to draw cards, it's just going to be 6 damage, which is a lot.
Yeah. It's quite a bit. Yeah. And for sure, it's definitely a lot of just like tiny hits that are just concessions of like either I want to take the damage so you don't get the card draw. Like it's a really balance on how much rope I give you to try to end me.
I love this card when you're on the draw because what'll happen is sometimes you'll play someone like a 7-hander and they'll go bop 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 bop, play 4 or 5 foundations, pass turn, then they go again, and then maybe they choose to not attack you. They build out even further, and I'm sitting there with like 4 because that's why I play on my first turn.
Yeah.
Then I lay this down first action or first form, ship it, kill all the things that they've done. They're going to have to make choices, and then I just go build. Now going into turn 3, they have 5 and I have 7 or 8.
Yeah. No, that sounds super powerful.
It is. It's very nice.
Cool.
So big fan of that.
Nice. And then last one is creepy realization. Sorry. So go for it.
Yeah, this is just kind of a concession to some of the string decks that are still lingering. Specifically, we're talking about the bird Tokoyami. He can easily have 6 cards in his card pool. So, or maybe you'll play against a staff strike deck or something like that. Anyone who you're looking, Jiro, although she's kind of fallen out of favor, she's still a powerful character. So anyone who's looking to have over 3 or more, I would say, or 4 or more cards in their card pool, I'm going to be siding this in. You can drop the attack if they have 4 by 4, the damage. And then conversely, every once in a while, you get to commit this to give your attack +1 for everyone in their card pool.
Yeah.
So if you're putting them to the heat, if you're putting them to the test, this is crazy if you have a tape swing as your last attack. Because I'm like, okay, you got to block. And then tape swing, +3 damage. That's effectively +2 if they're going to block it. A guaranteed 2 damage.
Yeah.
So it's a fantastic card. I would say if I knew the meta that I went in there with, or into, if I knew exactly the people that were playing, I would probably not play this in my deck. But I do believe aggro is going to be coming back, and this card is great for aggro. That's why Fourth Kind as an example, because he plays attack, foundation, attack.
Yeah.
He's got 4 cards in his pool. He gives it +4 damage. I can just give it -4 damage and cancel his entire ability.
Yeah.
So
yeah, something like that can just like invalidate a character that can be meta, I think is worth a side deck spot like that. So
for sure. I might have put it in my deck maybe once or twice, but I never used it one time.
Okay.
In the entire term.
Gotcha. I use like no cards in my side deck. One because I didn't want to, and then on day 2 I physically couldn't. So
very fair.
But I think that goes through everything. Again, I think you had an incredible run. I think this is a obviously well thought off list. We've been talking for 40 minutes as it is, so definitely a lot of knowledge and a lot of personal picks and everything like that. So I think it's very very well made.
Yeah, and it's fun. This is fun. You're playing mind games. You're playing poker with them. You're seeing their hand. You're drawing cards. I mean, this is like the gunslinger kind of deck that you want to play, but it's not just all in. There's a lot of ways to use the technology in this deck to kind of play a longer game. Not a long game, but you can be sticking it out to turns 4 and 5 and feel pretty good about it. So
yeah,
you get to put pressure in places where you normally don't get to, and I think altogether he's a really fun character. And if you're looking for someone who's fun and likes slinging crazy attacks, Sero is a good one to check out.
For sure, yeah, because I think we went to time in our match too. So we did. But you won game 1 I think pretty handsomely, and then I think I was on the turn, and then you were just able to be like, no, mitigate damage, make it very slow, and just not let me do really anything. So.
Absolutely.
Cool. Any shout outs before we end this one?
No, I mean, we play at Gamers Guild in Phoenix, Arizona, or Tempe, Arizona, I should say.
Yeah.
It's a really great place to play and buy cards. I'm super happy that those guys got me into it. I'm happy that I met you, Hayden, and I'm sure in the time to come we will have more decks to review. So
yeah, for sure. And I had sworn I have just moved to Phoenix in the last year that I've seen all the shops in this town, and just one more. You guys had like 30 people wearing your shirts and stuff. Like you are a whole force. So it definitely seems like a really tight knit community, and I'm really looking forward to discovering it more in the next couple of weeks as well.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, that's going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching. We really appreciate it, and we'll catch you all next time.
See you guys.